Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion. Second hour is usually something we're going to spend extra time on. Today, we're going to do just 2 hours of Q&A. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, we have education at 9 o'clock. So that's our plan for today. And we have questions. We have some questions. We will answer them kind of relaxed because we don't have a ton of them. So if you have questions here, we've got a great panel, a lot of a great breadth of knowledge here. So make sure to put those questions in right now, and we'll get started. Go ahead, David. David this is his second day as reader, and he's doing a great job. So take it away, David.
I didn't get enough yesterday. So good morning. First question in is from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. And he asks, in the new BitFocus Companion stable update, triggers are now out of beta. Who is using triggers, and specifically what are people doing with feedback triggers?
Go ahead, David.
I've actually used them back in the beta release. I think when I had my clocks sometimes in the pre-show, the after-hours pre-show, and I had it set so it would be like time to jump. And I think it might have messed up some of the people in there, like, wait, who's saying it's time to jump? I was just messing around with it then.
And can you explain a little bit what triggers are?
It's basically you can set conditions or time variables, etc., and the BitFocus Companion will perform those actions on whatever it was. In my case, I was using it with that clock 8001 that I have running on Raspberry Pi that you can trigger via pre-configured buttons, but the triggers itself is kind of an automation feature that was pretty neat.
All right, that's great. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I tried to do a trigger where my lower third would pop in at a certain point in time, and then like the subscribe and stuff like that. And with it coming out of beta, I had some major problems with my companion yesterday. Lost a lot of my buttons, but I think I got it all worked out. But yeah, the triggers, if they work right, it's going to be great because then I will have a lot of hands-free.
Is it kind of like shortcuts for a companion? Like it's just you can set up a set of rules? Not really, kind of.
I think sort of. It's programmatic way of addressing things.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Is there a difference between triggers and feedback? Are they one and the same thing? Because I'm looking forward to that functionality in mix effects.
If I'm not mistaken, I'll just jump in. Feedback is if the program offers that response. So a program like MIDI, which is the playback thing I use, provides feedback to the clock program that I use. So I can actually get TRT and time of clip back onto my clock if the right things are all set up.
That's great. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
The other thing to remember is now that Companion, the full function of Companion is so you could take your Stream Deck and take it off the main computer that you're using. You could actually have it on a Raspberry Pi or another machine, and then you can run these triggers as it goes. So you hit the start of show, and then it can tell one computer to turn on the lights, change the lights. It can tell another machine to bring up a lower third. It can just do a lot of remote production as well as the main computer production. So I think that once we start hooking up multiple computers, we're really going to start seeing how triggers are going to play into this. And that's just something I haven't done yet.
Next question.
Ready. Our next question is from Mitchell Hill here on the panel from Wilmington, Delaware. And he asks, are there plans to provide some coverage at NAB this year? It's 1 week away.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yes, I will be there on Saturday. And officially, my first day will be Sunday, the expo. The hall opens on Sunday. We have already talked with a group of people here. I'm not going to get too much into detail, but we are planning to do something where some people are going to be remote, some people are going to be on the floor doing the interviews, and if anything, on my channel, I'll have some reviews and first looks at products.
Go ahead, John.
Ferguson's going to be walking around. We'll probably be in after hours, walking around on his phone.
That's great. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, my question is, are we going to be able to see it on after hours?
Yeah, and I think we should build an NAB, like for the hours. What would be great is if folks can schedule some time, that we're going to be live to after hours at certain times. It can be once a day, twice a day, whatever, with a little bit of a plan. And then we can do that at like 2 to 4 in the afternoon or whatever makes sense for the folks that are on the ground. And then we'll create a breakout room for it so that everyone can kind of, if you want to watch NAB, you can jump in there, make the NAB room. I'd love to do that. So to just for the folks that are working on it, just let me know what you're planning. And a reminder that Blackmagic has an announcement on Monday, and I have carved it out. So I actually moved a meeting. Someone put a meeting in my 10:30. I was like, I have a meeting that I have to be at. So we'll be doing that at 10 o'clock. Next question.
All right. Our next question is from Chad Lafarge from Columbia, Missouri. And he asks, during the pre-show this morning, Rosco gave a great primer for beginner camera operators. Can he recap that on the record?
Go ahead, Rosco.
I'll give it a try and jump in here, guys. I'll probably forget something. Basically, I just talked about when I'm working with new camera people, which students are oftentimes not familiar with how to operate a camera. So the first thing I talk about is rule of thirds. And if you look right now, thank you. On the OH program, the rule of thirds, you always put people on different sides when they're looking at each other. So that's the first thing they have to know is the goal. What are we trying to actually get the framing to be? And then secondary, we adjust their tripod. Tripods have pan adjustments and tilt adjustments, and some tripods are spring loaded, some aren't. And so you have to get them very comfortable with how they're going to smoothly slide that camera back and forth or tilt up and down to make those small adjustments. And then how smooth. You really want them to be very smooth as they're operating. I had to take some notes here. After that, we're not talking about Steadicam here. We don't. We try and put everything on a tripod. There are people that are highly qualified to do Steadicam, but most people aren't. NYPD Blue, I think, was one of the first shows that had that jiggly cam look, which was supposed to make it look more authentic. And so we can get something like that. But even that is a highly trained technique. So don't assume that you can just get away without a tripod. Let's see, understanding actor initiated movements. So anytime the camera does move on frame, you'd let the actor move it. So if an actor leans to the right, then you can move. If the actor stops moving and you're still moving, then you're going to bring attention back to the camera. So you definitely don't want to have that happen. And then I think, let's see, well, we could talk about the role of comms, but that's a whole different discussion if you're doing a 3-camera, that kind of stuff. So understanding that you're just part of the sequence of shots, you're not every shot all the time. And so you have to allow for actors to stand up out of frame sometimes, so that drives a cut to give us going to another place. I think that's it. I'll stop there.
I saw it in a movie where there was one shot, and I can't think of the movie right now, but I was thinking about you're talking about following the actor, and they followed the actor and created a nose room. And then over the time he's talking, it slowly drifted, like just really, 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 really slowly drifted back so that there's a ton of space behind him, and then he got attacked. But what was funny was it was building pressure because it's amazing how the camera can start to, it is an actor, and it is. Yep. And so it was so slow that you didn't notice it drifting, but suddenly you got tense because there's a ton of space behind him, and then the monster. Anyway, so go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I was watching Better Call Saul to recap it before the new season starts on Monday, and one thing they kept doing over and over again, and it was kind of interesting because it made me anxious, is that they would cut right before you normally would cut. There's a comfortable place to cut to the next scene or cut to the next actor. He would cut just before, like 5 frames ahead of time, and it just built that tension and that anxiety. So it was kind of a cool use of it. They can get away with that kind of stuff. The other thing I made a comment to John is that it was, Rosco, that the technology has changed, but the way to tell a story has not. It's still the same, even going back to Edison. So it's kind of an interesting observation.
Good, David.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. I think it's Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. For whatever reason, that movie drives me nuts because it's every time a person talks, it's a cut to the other person. So if it's a dialogue, it's like cut, 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 and it drives me bonkers. But I also wanted to throw Rosco props for the night before the rocket launch. I was part of I guess it was like a technical rehearsal. We did beam into Kyle Hammond's show. I was talent on the set, and Rosco, as I guess it was floor director, stage director, was
stage manager, floor director, yeah,
letting me know where to look and how to be in it, how to be in the moment. And it was a really cool experience. And thanks, Rosco. It was great meeting you too.
When I walk away from a film that I go, that was a great film. It's like, that was an amazing film. I will. I will. First, I never watch a film trying to analyze it. I just want to be in the film and I just enjoy the film. But if I think it's a great film, I will turn the audio off and watch the whole thing. I'll just sit there and just watch it. You have to remember that somebody storyboarded that and they had discussions and they had 50 people, like on a big budget, they had 50 or 100 people there, making sure it was. And there's nothing done by accident. Like nothing in that film was an accident for them to do it. I mean, there might be a little shot here and there that they just said, oh, this will be really cool. But there's so much thought and process into it. And so I watched the whole thing, but you can't see the cameras as well. I can't see the cameras as well when the audio is on, because then I get pulled back into the story. And so I just watch it with everything off, and I just look at why were they doing that? Why did they do that shot that way? And what were they trying to do with the camera? Because on a big budget film, they're trying to do something. I think that one of the great sequences to look at when you want to see someone really intentionally use camera moves is the kung fu scene in The Matrix. From the time he says, I know kung fu, to the time he jumps, to the building. I hope I'm not doing any spoilers, but it's 20 years old, 22 years old. So anyway, the time he jumps to the buildings, there's the whole sequence. Every shot means something. And I used to use it in my classes, because I would say, they're adding pressure here. They're giving you a breath here. They're making him feel small. They're making him look big. They're framing him this way. And it's a masterful thing. And the other one that I love is in The Bourne Identity, the second one, when he's in Italy in the security. I know it's another spoiler, but he ends up in Italy in the security booth at the embassy, and in immigration or whatever, and he does this thing with a cell phone where he pulls the cell phone apart. Sorry, spoiler. He pulls the cell phone apart, puts another chip in, and they tell a story in like 10 seconds. They explain what he just did visually, and it's just a masterful way to kind of put it together. Anyway, those are some of the things that I like to show when I'm doing classes on cameras. Go ahead, Rosco.
And the best thing to do is to borrow. We don't use the term steal, but to borrow those techniques from, the great directors have done this stuff. And so to take it from there. And there was a point. I was just going to say, my classic scene is the second Godfather, the scene where Michael, I'm not ruining anything, Michael has to leave. I think her name's Kate, is the gal's character. And as he's leaving that scene, he's seated at the table. When he gets up to move, the camera doesn't adjust. And so he's not seated on the right side of the screen. It's an unbalanced shot, and it bothers you. And then you realize the whole scene is about him not being where he should be. And that's why they've left that in there. But from a technical standpoint, you're going, there's something wrong. And the answer is, that's part of the story.
Yeah. And filmmakers do take ideas from other filmmakers, sometimes almost verbatim. So there's I believe it's called Dam Busters. It was a 40s or 50s film. And you had to basically, in World War II, there was a dam that they had a German dam that they had. Sorry, you had to bounce the bomb across it, but you could only do it at a certain angle. If you were at a too high of an angle, it would just go down. And if you were too low, it would bounce over it, or it would lose energy and sink. So they figured out exactly where you needed to do it. And there were two poles on the dam. And so on the fighter pilots, they put these little sights on it, and so when the plane comes in, it has to, as soon as it sees its sights on the top of those two poles, you drop the bomb. And so it was like, it looked, like you're going down, and then you have to get it just right, and we'll just say that one of the folks was named Red Leader. It was like sticker stamp, and just to scratch off the surface, all that stuff is in the film, in Dam Busters. So, and then, there was this race, this engine race that was, in episode 1, and there's a lot of engines and people going around. If you watch Ben-Hur, you may see that there's many similarities to it. So anyway, go ahead, Mitchell.
I think that movie you're talking about is The Bridges at Toko-Ri, I think is what it was called. But I do recall the plot line. The other movie that I get a kick out of, we were talking about it in a film class, was The Manchurian Candidate, the original. And there's the classic scene where Frank Sinatra is talking in the car, and he's out of focus through the whole thing. And there was all this speculation going on with the students about, why do you suppose they did that? And it kind of added to the moment. And I said, no, it was a mistake. Frank only does one take. And he said, got it? Good. I'm out of here.
Go, John.
Happy accident.
Rosco and I were in after hours one day, and Rosco showed me and taught me about the 180-degree rule and crossing the line. And he's got example videos, and he shows you a couple of them that actually cross the line on purpose for a specific storytelling purpose. It's amazing. Should be a second hour.
When my second day at Lucasfilm, they hired me to build models, and I was doing animatics, and I was just building the animatic for a shot, and I did the shot, and I was very proud of it. I was like, it cut to this side, and then it cut to the other side, and David DeZoritz, who was my supervisor at the time, looked at my shot, and he goes, "Oh, but you crossed the line." And I looked at him kind of blankly, like, I don't know what that means. And he said, "I'm working on Star Wars at Lucasfilm at Skywalker Ranch." And I'm like, I don't know what 180 degrees is. So he just was like, "Oh no." And like I hired the wrong person. And he drew a line, and he goes, "The cameras all have to stay on this side, and this is why," and everything else. And so then that was where my college was for my film school, was all at the ranch. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I went to film school fresh out of high school as well, not being a film person then, but I've learned, and I mentioned this in after hours before the show, that's kind of that language that we're talking about, those rule of thirds, all the 180 degree, those skewed shots that Hitchcock was famous for, where when things twist that way, it kind of upsets you psychologically. And that's what's really that I dig about film in general. I'll watch film just to watch film, and it's a great medium.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I was going to say, your comment about Ben-Hur and reusing a design. I pointed it out to my girlfriend at the time, and she didn't believe me. Then I got a videotape, because that was when it was videotape, and fast forwarded to that race and says, "Now tell me it's not the same race."
Well, even when you see Anakin's pod hook up with Sebulba's pod,
exactly. I mean, it was.
It's like, I mean, I looked at the film while I was doing the animatic for that shot. So like it was like, like to get it just the way, just to kind of look at it. So it was.
By the way, Dam Busters is the name of the movie, and in fact, it is still used in, at least it was 15 years ago, in the War College.
Oh wow, that's great.
Because there are things in that movie that are it's actually patterned after something that really happened in World War II, and why you have to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Rosco.
Yeah, and some BBC show has gone back and recreated it and gone through the technology and explaining and getting that thing to spin at the right speed and done all that analysis. So it's a very fascinating thing to study. But real quick, John, my problem is I don't think I get permission from the major studios to show the scenes that it would take for me to do a second hour, because they are, but I'll give you a clue. The other one that is, if you go to Saving Private Ryan, and I'm not ruining the show, there's a moment where they actually find Private Ryan and they talk to him about what the whole mission of why they're there, and watch how that changes. His world changes right as he gets that information. I'll leave it there. You can go look for it.
That's great. Next question.
All right. Our next question is from Michael Andreas of Olathe, Kansas. And has anyone tried the Lumina 4K AI webcam at getlumina.com? It looks promising with a larger sensor than the Brio, and even includes a color calibration card.
I have it. I thought I had it right here, but I don't. Anyway, I have the Lumina. It's not as good as the Brio. so it's and I think that they also disabled the color card because there was something wrong with it. I don't know if they fixed that or not, but it was an issue. It's smaller and it looks nicer than the Brio. It's a very wide angle lens, and so when you zoom in, Brio's wide angle, but I think that the Lumina, I believe, is wider than the Brio. And the problem with it, and we've talked about this in the past, is that the manufacturers of these webcams are wrong. Like, they're just wrong. Like, they 90 degree and 110 degree and 120 degree field of view on a 4K just means that you just wasted a bunch of resolution on I don't need to see the whole room. What I need is something that will do something between 60 and 70 degrees at its widest at 4K. And so literally they have these great sensors and all this great electronics, and they're just putting the wrong piece of glass on the front. They cost the same amount of money as they do it. And if they sold one that had a 70 degree field of view for work for home, they'd sell as many as they could make. They're completely off based, and the Lumina just continues that process. And so I think it looks really cool. And we'll see if we can I have to admit that I'm somewhat sensitive. The reason we don't do demos of it in my office, I'm somewhat sensitive to the fact that there's a lot of stuff around me. It looks nice and clean when you see it, but showing the wide angle there in my office would probably not be something I want to do. So so I think that maybe we'll find another room for it, and we'll look at them and do A/B tests in them. But it's just it's a really cool camera. But I still would, if you asked me what I was going to buy, I'd still buy the Brio. And same problem with the Dell. Same problem with the Huddle cams. Same problem with, like, they're all of them have, all they have to do is build a 70 millimeter lens, 70 millimeter with 4K, and it would be life changing for the industry. And nobody is doing it. And no matter what I say, no one listens. Go ahead, David.
I have one of those Tandberg Precision HD USB cameras in the closet. If you want that for a shootout, I'll bring it to the table.
No, so that is 50 degrees. 50 degree diagonal.
It's only a 720p camera. That's the only downside.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
but it's 50 degree diagonal field of view, and that is the one. The reason I'm saying 60, 70 is I'm like, oh, you might want a little bit more than that. It had to be at a very specific. It was, but the Precision HD from Cisco or Tandberg before Cisco was the best. Like it, and if it was 1080p, I'd still be using it. It had better light sensitivity because it was a pretty big chip at the time. And it was the best. And the only problem with it
had a physical, like you twisted the lens cap and it would shut the.
I had 20 of those, and when COVID hit, I threw them away when I moved, because it was like we were moving out of a warehouse in duress. Like we were out of time to get out, and so we just left a bunch of stuff, and it was 20 of those is what I left. And when COVID started, I was like, because people were buying them for $1,000 each. I was like, I could fund an entire like mini studio with those if they were just used, just in a bag. They'd sell them to you for $1,000 each. And
I bricked one trying to flash the firmware on it.
Yeah, they were great cameras. The only problem with them was they didn't have a quarter 20, so they were designed to fold and hook to the front and had a little arm on the back that you set on the monitor. So what we did is we printed these ones that slid around them that we then hot tapped the quarter 20 into, and that way we gave them a quarter 20. Dag nabbit. All right, next question.
Right, and next question is from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. He's looking for advice on a simple 1080p switcher for a theater, lobby, latecomer camera, pre-show ad system. With SDI out, SDI and HDMI in, scaling would be nice, but not a deal breaker, and the fancy transitions and keying are not needed.
I go ahead, Rosco.
Yeah, I'd go back to the basic ATEM and get the SDI to HDMI and the HDMI to SDI converter boxes. It's all from the same company. It all works together. We've used it many a time, so the converters work almost seamlessly. And then you do get one still store in there, so you could load up one still store that you can just always be in there. You can load up, I think, 20 total, but accessing them from just the interface is not easy. You have to have a computer hooked up, and you have to swap them out that way. But I'd go with it's about $285 for the switcher, about $40 to $50 for those boxes, and that'd be where I'd go.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm with Rosco on that. I think it makes a lot of sense. As soon as you say SDI, it's no longer simple, but getting the converter would fix that. I'd also take a look over at Roland. They're doing some interesting things, and they might have a box. I haven't looked. Might have a box that fits your needs there too.
I go with Jeffrey.
The great thing about getting these ATEMs, I have the ATEM 4K in the other room, is that you can also use MixEffect for that. So you could have a tablet you could be running around and actually be doing any type of switching if you need to.
There was one that was I thought it was I guess I was just looking during while we were answering it for the there was one that had both HDMI and SDI in. It was like the production HD maybe. And it had, a couple, Black Magic. It's still, let's see if it's still available here. $1,000. It's not listed on Blackmagic's site anymore. But it's the ATEM's Television Studio HD, and it has both HDMI and SDI ins, and it has a HDMI and SDI outs, and it also and it's an ATEM, and it's a 1U. The advantage of it is it's not one, it's 2/3 of a U. So you can the reason it's designed that way is so that you can take one of the mini hyperdecks and just slide it in next to it, or a web presenter and slide it in next to it. And that will have both HDMI and SDI in, and then it'll also have HDMI and SDI out. and it's rack mountable, and it's a nice. I used to own one. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I was doing some research on this question too, and I stumbled down the expensive path of the Panasonic, what is it, AV-HLC 100. It's a HDMI SDI switcher, scaler, multi-view, T-bar, camera control, 10 grand, but
Yeah, this one has the video inputs. It's 4 HDMI inputs and 4 SDI inputs. For the inputs, and so that's and then it has 5 video outputs, so 4 BNs. Oh, I guess maybe it doesn't have an it has HDMI somewhere in there. I know that it does. Anyway, for the outputs, I go with Jeffrey.
Yeah, that was the one reason why I didn't get the television studio at the time. I ended up, like I said, I got the 4K production. That's the step down between the ATEM 1, and because I couldn't do HDMI either in or out, it was mostly a lot of SDI that was in there. But if SDI is
the television studio though has four HDMI's ins.
Yeah, so it must not have had the HDMI out. There was a reason why, but I really wanted it because it was so thin. It would fit in the 1U rack, and you'd see like the heat sink right behind it, and it would fit in there.
Well,
perfect.
This one didn't have a heat sink.
Yeah.
This is the newer.
Yeah, this is the black box. Yeah.
I had a lot of the ones with the heat sinks. For our 2MEs with the heat sinks, we used to literally take the heat sink off and screw a fan in to the heat sink to just pull more air through it so that it wouldn't overheat when we were outside. Go ahead, Rosco.
I just worry that HDMI out is the multi-view out, and it may not be a program out, but configurable. So just make sure if you buy one that HDMI, if you need that as your output, does actually do program.
And the easiest way to fix that, what I would do probably, because that switcher is a great switcher because you've got buttons on the front to push into different. You can just go to the buttons on. You don't have to even have software for it to run it. It's such a nice little switcher. I would think about a decimator. Just Velcro the decimator right to the next of it, and you can convert the SDI to HDMI, and you have a bunch of SDI outs as well. Next question.
Alrighty. Our next question is from Douglas Carmichael, and he's asking, in the audio world, it seems that audio for interactive media, such as games, and video is a lot more marketable than music production, although I love synthesis and sound design. What audio sectors are the most marketable and remote friendly?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It really bent my mind a little bit when I thought about it. And I think you kind of answer it yourself when you say you like synthesis and sound design, because those two things together is a big part of sweetening audio. And if you're a specialist in sweetening, you're very marketable. And a lot of sound effects and things are, either a combination of synthesis or just an organic sound bent and mangled by some kind of a patch. So if you know your way around all those things, you're very marketable, particularly in the movie industry.
It's harder to work remotely when you haven't done it for a long time. Like you haven't done what you're doing for a long time. A lot of times people want you around when they don't know you or they don't know what you do. So that's a little bit more of a challenge when you, especially in kind of a lot of these things, they're going to want you in the office to see you working. And then at some point you get really good and you go, I can work anywhere I want. I had a friend that I was just watching Alias last night. I've decided to start the series again, and the family has. And so we were watching it, and it was funny. I have a friend who did all the visual effects for it, or did most of them. One person out of Bellingham, Washington, and they would send him hard drives, like just literally, here's the hard drive from the shoot. He'd send them the hard drive back with the plates all done. And they almost never needed to review it because he worked at ILM, but he worked at ILM for a decade. Maybe more than a decade, maybe 2 decades. So he was there doing matte painting for ILM, but all the set extensions that they did. And if you want to see it, I don't know if his website's still up because I don't know what he's doing right now, but Blackpool Studios, Eric Siobhan is amazing. But that's the thing to think about. That's the thing to think about is it's just hard to do those kinds of things. You want to use, but you can do it. What you want to do is think about putting things up as examples. Like I'm starting to follow all these people that use Phase Plant. So PHASE plant. Oh my gosh. And I just can't get enough. Like it is the coolest. We're going to get them on. I just haven't, I've been going back and forth with them to find a time. It's the coolest audio app I've seen in a long time. They are reproducing like helicopters and motorcycles and and then music, all with this because it's basically, you can have any attribute of a thing affect, trim the controls of something else, And it just is this, I would take a look at it because it will let you do both of those things. Next question.
All right. Well, Douglas is back with another question. He's been testing Cubase 12 and enjoying some of the features of it for music. As someone interested in doing professional audio for video and sound design work, as well as music, would it be best to wait for Nuendo 12 and avoid Cubase?
I wouldn't say avoid it, but I would say Nuendo is pretty cool. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I would say it's not necessarily the tools that make the trade. You go back to like that Star Trek where they built the radio out of bear skins and aluminum cans or whatever. Sometimes just jump in and do stuff, and the tools will help hone the craft, but not necessarily drive it.
In music, the three apps that I see the most when we're working with folks is Pro Tools, Logic, and Nuendo. Those are the big three that I see the most. I'm not saying that those are the only three that people use, but when I run into them, and then of course Ableton Live, if they're doing, there's some, Ableton Live is the one that kind of is there too. Like oftentimes they're using both. So, but those are the big apps that I see go by. Next question.
All right. Douglas back with it. He's got a triple play here. In Bitwig Studio, you can add tracks to the project as it plays without freezing the user interface. In Cubase 12, the user interface freezes for a few minutes when you add tracks during playback. Is this normal?
It may also depend on the speed of the processor as it processes that as you drop it. So it might be there, but it could be just it loading it up. Basically it's loading into RAM or loading into memory, or possibly rendering I wonder if you added it again, if it would be the same delay, because a lot of times the first time you add it, it might cache it and then write the waveform. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and remember, there's always a setting inside there that can actually increase or decrease your cache, and you might want to take a look at that in Cubase 12. I don't remember where that is. It's been a very long time since I've used that software. And remember not to use both programs at the same time, because they're going to be fighting back and forth for resources.
Next question.
All right. Our next question comes from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. He has Microsoft OneDrive allows for 6 terabytes of storage, but they split it up among family members, 1 terabyte each. Is this manageable?
That'd be hard for me. Like for an average family, I think it'd be just fine. Like, they're not going to go through a terabyte, but to put it in perspective, we're doing these concerts now at the stage, and every concert generates about 8 terabytes of footage. And so, it would, like, I just look at 1 terabyte, like, I don't know what I would do with that. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I think what Paul's asking is, can he make it so one person has 500 gigs, the next one has 2 terabytes type thing?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I'm not sure of that answer. I have a hard time with OneDrive. I actually turn it off.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
So on the personal plans, when you get like $10 a month or $100 a year for your family, the answer to that question is no. If you upgrade to the small business and enterprise SKUs with Microsoft, and you get into the full suite Exchange and whatever, yes, you can do that. And of course, you can also pay additional money for additional storage. Like Alex said, depending on what you're using it for, some of your files may be large.
Next question.
Okay, Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is back with a question. If you have multiple clouds, such as OneDrive, Google Drive, AWS, etc., what's the best integrative software to manage and sync them?
Go ahead, Rosco.
Well, this is an approach. I don't know that this isn't designed to do this, but I would use Carbon Copy Cloner, which I use to drive all my storage, backup needs, and that kind of stuff. Because I look at online storage as either I need it to use it in another location, and I'm not going to carry a hard drive with me, Dropbox, something along those lines. So I use Carbon Copy Cloner to whatever I have in my hand to push that to the place I want it to be. Otherwise, I used to say, Google Drive is only for this, which has a very specific purpose. It only has the tracks for, a particular project I'm working on. I would not try and blend these things together and try and, manipulate data across them. I think that's just too confusing.
Go ahead, Taylor.
If you're trying to sync all the cloud services together, so essentially all the cloud services have the same data. The name of the company escapes me at the moment, but there are services out there that use developer APIs that will sync your data across from cloud to cloud, so everything matches each other.
Go, Jeffrey.
I'll put.
Yeah, there are some enterprise. I think one's called Kyndryl. It's like KRY, and I was trying to look it up. So you'll be able to do that. But once again, unless there's a specific reason why you need to have multiple areas for your data, you might want to just think about moving it all to one area and not have to do that cross, because you end up losing files every single time.
And a reminder to our producers, we have a ton of time, and we'll probably have more room for questions. This is a great time for you to ask questions. So if you want us to look at them in the second hour, because we're going to do 2 hours of Q&A. Next question.
All right. Our next question is from Todd Rains in Allen, Texas. And he asks, what is the best low-cost, no-cost solution to remote to a Mac Mini from a Windows machine?
Go ahead, Rosco.
I like Chrome Remote Desktop. It just seems to work. I know some people don't like loading Chrome, but it just works, and it's worked for me flawlessly for years now.
Go, Jeffrey.
VNC Viewer. I just did this on, because on my remote machine I have a Mac Mini and an Intel NUC, and so I connected to the Intel NUC through the Mac Mini. Keep in mind that encryption there is no password protection or encryption. It sends out what you see. So if somebody else can connect to that network, they'll be able to see your screens.
Go ahead, Taylor.
I was going to also say VNC, but I also add on top of that Screen Connect, or in other words known as ConnectWise Control. They have a free plan. It supports all platforms, so you can remote into PC, Linux, or Mac.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, and the VNC listener on Mac is built in as part of the remote desktop, so any VNC client will connect. I actually subscribe to Real VNC. They have a cloud connector for up to 5 computers for a home user. Allows me to get back and forth, and I think they add a layer of encryption in that, but I'm not 100%.
And so Real VNC lets you can have 5 computers anywhere, and because it's using the cloud, it just knows where they are. You don't have to know their IP.
Yeah, and I can actually, don't tell the boss, but I can get to my work computer without going through the VPN.
Yeah, no one's watching. No one's going to know. It's not like it's recorded on YouTube. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
NDI also has a remote desktop option to it, so I am not sure. I don't think I haven't set up a Mac to PC NDI just yet, but I'll do that this weekend.
Next question.
Righty. Our next question is from Eric Price in Kansas City, Kansas. In my house of worship, a group running a hybrid event wants to feed out to the meeting to include stage panelists and the projector screen. Any way to white balance for both, or do I need to use a large monitor instead?
You should be able to white balance it. The problem is that it may look odd to the people watching. You can white balance you have to white balance the screen to the camera, because if you try to do the camera to the screen, it'll be a mess. So what you need to do is you should be able to do this. It depends on what you're using, a Mac or PC. On a Mac, I don't know the PC side, but on the Mac, there is a projector color correction setting in the Mac. It's in the new Monterey, or Big Sur maybe too. But you can say this is a projector, and now you can do color correction to it. And you could probably use so you could, and so there you should be able to adjust colors and so on and so forth. But there should be a way to basically set a lookup table. And what you want is the camera and everything there. Set the camera to 5600 or whatever, or 32 if you're inside. And then you want to color correct that. The other way to do that, of course, is as there is and I can't think of the name of it, but Blackmagic makes a monitor box. It's like the 8K display box or whatever. So it's a little, and what it does is it will let you load LUTs into it. What you're looking for is a way to load LUTs before you get to it. So you can, you could literally, you can either do it with a Mac, or PC may have something like that. I just don't know how to do it. But the other way to do it, to have absolute control, will be go out of your computer into something that will allow you to apply a LUT, and then go into the projector. Now you can just go into Resolve and change the color. Like, this is the color I want, then look at it. And then this is the color I want, and then look at it. But you should be able to correct it, because accurate color and what it's doing. And another thing to possibly do is use a spider, drop it on, and actually correct the projection. But I don't, it'd have to be rear projection to make that work. So there's a couple things there. Go ahead, Rosco.
Yeah, and if as I read this, if the reason is they want to be able to see the words for singing or something come across the screen, make sure you test that too, because you may have to readjust all your titling or all your words, your contrast on your words to make sure that they come through the projector and then back through the camera and look decent.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is that a lot of those words in House of Worship have pictures behind them, and so I think that my guess is the goal is to make both of those look good, and it will be very hard to make it look good for the camera and for the people in the room at the same time. So this is probably an art project. I mean, like it might take you a while to find a happy medium between the two. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Chris Taylor in Carlsbad, California, and he asks, has there been any news about the supply chain of backordered electronic devices delayed due to the chip manufacturer fire, such as MixPre 3.2s? Is anything shipping yet?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
The news is it's still a problem, and it's a problem across lots of different things. I think stuff that includes Dante has been delayed, any DACs or things of that nature. I have a Studio Technologies that I've been waiting on since I bought it in February. They just told me it's not going to be here until the end of May. So it's out there.
Yeah, it's really a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem. This is the what he was referring to is a company called AKM had a factory fire in Japan. They happen to make all the audio. It's a digital, and maybe the digital audio analog to digital converters are a vast majority of them, and literally there's 6 months of no production. While they, and I think it might even taken longer because of COVID. They can't get the factory back up, and it's why we can't. For instance, there's rumors that Yamaha is no longer going to make the QL1 ever. It's because by the time they get out of the backlog, that it's just better to put out the new product. So the QL1 maybe I've heard that the QL1 and possibly the QL5 will be end of life, and they're not saying that, but it's basically EOL'd because they're going to put out a new version without that it's because of the fire. So it's crazy times. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's affecting everything. Ford just announced that the F-150 is out of production. You can't get them. They stopped because they can't get chips for them.
Yeah, so it's a may you live in crazy times, Chinese curse, or may you live in interesting times, I think is the Chinese curse. And we're definitely in interesting times. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Eric Natham in Bellingham, Washington, and he asks, there was a discussion in After Hours yesterday about the best setting software to use with the Brio. Do you have any suggestions for Mac and PC?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So with if you're just doing it through the camera, there's not too many options. I think there's the Logitune is the biggest one that'll work, and I'm not sure if it works on both Mac and PC. What I normally do is I'll use either Wirecast, vMix, Ecamm, and then bring the camera in. They'll all have different types of settings, ways to change the look of your camera and go from there. Even on Mac, you have Cam Twist, which is absolutely free if you don't want to use OBS. That will allow you to make some basic changes, because the best part about that is when you use just the basic settings on Windows and Mac, and then you unplug that camera, plug it back in, everything resets to 0. And that gets kind of frustrating after a while.
Go ahead, Rosco.
On the Mac webcam settings I've been using, and I like it. It gives me pretty decent controls over white balance. Does allow me to zoom, pan, tilt a little bit, fixing. And webcam settings, Mac.
Yeah, that's the one I use as well. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Roy Myers in Bel Air, Maryland. And he asks, can you find or construct a lens to attach to the Brio to fix the wide angle problem?
You might be able to. I thought about it. I mean, it is a, put something on top of it that would, we do this with iPhones. We put lenses on top of lenses, and it's really hard. It's not, this isn't like the easy problem. Like, I'm going to put a lens on top. It's like, it is math, hard math that has to be just right. But we've definitely done those kinds of things with this kind of thing. Go ahead, Rosco.
Well, yeah, the quality of those small lenses get to be really poor, so you really have to put some money into it. And I haven't seen anything that I think I'd trust to do it for this purpose.
Yeah, I think that the one that was the closest, I got a Huddle Cam that was sent to me, and it's a great little camera, but it's still too wide angled. But it punches out. There's the lens is sticking out of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, if they just made a screw-on version of this, of I want a 90 degree, I want a 120, and I want a 70 degree, or even a 50 degree or whatever. I'm like 3 lenses that you could just attach, and then you could decide what you want. I'd pay an extra $50 for that easy. Just for, I don't know, probably $5 worth of glass. So that's what needs to happen. Someone needs to figure this out. And HuddleCam is probably the one to figure it out of all of them, because they think harder about this stuff than I think most of the folks do. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Doesn't GoPro make something where they can actually change the lens on it? That would be
but it's not a webcam
you're looking for.
Yeah. There's a company that retrofits them. It's called somewhere here I have one.
Yeah, because if you use a GoPro and then you use the media kit to bring it into the computer with a capture card, that would work like
it's just not a webcam though. I mean, it just becomes like this is an art project now. There's a company that's called Skeletal. It's called Skeletal or Skeleton. It basically Skeleton, I think maybe is what it is, and they take a GoPro and they shave it off and put a lens mount on it and everything else. But it's like $800. Like it's not like we used them because we use GoPros for a TV show about putting kids to bed in Britain, the kids that don't go to bed. And so there was like this, and we used the GoPro. And we pulled off the IR filter, and we put these lenses on. So we had to kind of retrofit all these little GoPros. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Isn't there a Canon lens that you can get that's magnetic that slides on? It's like a very small format. I've got a camera back behind me that has like 5.
Again, the real answer is a webcam that does the thing, has thought this out and created something that, and the webcam market is so crowded. There's a real opportunity to get uncrowded really quickly for somebody who thought ahead and just put in a better lens. Next question.
Okay, our next question comes from Abe Barrera in Georgia. And it's more of a statement, a general thought thing. Have you seen the new footage behind the scenes of Ambulance from Micahel Bay, how they're using FPV drones with red cameras? You can find it on YouTube.
We haven't seen it. It sounds really cool and super dangerous. I'm sure there was a lot of logistics to figure that out. Somebody said, I think we can do this with a red camera with an FPV. I mean, when FPVs go bad, they go really bad. And so that would be an expensive mistake. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, when you start sending a red or an Arri, large format mini or something up there, you need a big drone. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen some of these drones, folks, but they're huge. They're like little mini helicopters. You could jump on and take a ride.
These octocopters are typically, we commissioned some red footage, on drone, and some Arri footage, and to Mitchell's point, I mean, I think the span is like 8 feet or something like that. They're just massive. They're actually I got to fly them for just a little bit. I didn't take off or land. I just got to fly them when they're in the air really carefully because they're really expensive. They're much easier to fly. So as the drone gets bigger, its weight gets heavier and it moves slower. It's not as twitchy. So if you buy like little ones for like $15, I get these all the time because I like to play with them. They're really hard to fly because everything wrecks, but they're fun to play with. And then as you get the DJIs and you get the bigger DJIs, every time you get bigger, in my opinion, it gets easier to fly. It's just a lot less twitchy and there's a lot more electronics. You paid a lot more money for it. So it's got a lot more safety features and other things into it. Go ahead, Rosco.
I did a quick search and I just have this question. The thing that popped up is why is Micahel Bay using a 19-year-old to fly his drones? And I thought that was interesting that the young people, they spend a lot of time flying their drones. They probably get very good at it. By the time they're 19, they're probably ready to do professional work.
Yeah, this kid's he's probably been flying since he was 12. And again, this is where when you see people become like savant level, of things, a lot of times they started when they were young, and by the time they're 19, they're really good at it. And so that is, and it's because it's now muscle memory. It's not thinking about it. And so he's probably, it's an education hour, but allowing kids to specialize is the future. Next question.
Okay, our next question comes from Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand, and he asks, I'm looking to buy a decent but perhaps entry-level 4-string bass guitar. Budget is around $500 US. Any bass players on the panel, and he's thinking of Squier or perhaps Ibanez. Go
ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I was going to suggest Ibanez. I just had a friend of mine actually buy a Ibanez 5-string bass. was about $250. It's got some great action to it, and of course, it's made from cheaper wood, and so it won't play as well as the $1,000, $2,000 Ibanez's, of course. But also take a look at a company called Donner, Donner. They basically make entry level guitars and basses, and they're pretty well named. They also do entry level drums. They have a pretty good name for that type of work and those types of instruments.
Good, David.
Well, I am not a bass player, but I do have one back there somewhere. The Squier and/or Fender Mustang bass. It's a 3/4 scale, so it's a little closer to the length of a guitar. It might be easier on the old fingers. And good luck. Looking to hear it.
Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Douglas Carmichael. With what IT infrastructure skills would be the most marketable and usable in the media event sector? I know we used AWS for cloud-based production, but he's interested in others.
Go ahead, Taylor.
The biggest one I would say, and I say this because I'm in radio and in IT, is networking. Understanding networking, understanding how to configure switches, routers, bandwidth, etc., and also understanding the different broadcast paths for audio and video that both which can take. And of course, like you said, AWS and knowing the cloud is also good too.
Yeah, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's also going to depend on what part of the media sector that you're going through. I remember last time I was in Vegas for a show, we had to use, of course, the union rep for the sound, and I talked to him about that to kind of get that idea of what type of IT skills that he's had to learn, and it's basically what he was suggesting was the networking and being able to put things, because he can take his board and he can save that file for the however the board's set, and then he can put that up in the cloud. So if he has to use that same board but not the exact same board, he can bring that file back down and load from there. If it was a video person, there might be some different things. Of course, a lot of networking. That's definitely one of the cross connects.
Yep. Go ahead, Peter.
One that is often overlooked, even in the IT world, is systems engineering skills. That is actually a professional certification process sponsored by an organization called INCOSE, INCOSE. And it's just how you decompose a problem and how you put things together. And I got to believe, I've looked at what you guys have been doing here on office hours, and I say, I understand it because I can decompose the problem and put it back together again in engineering terms.
Yeah.
And it's transferable. It's directly transferable.
The next question.
Our next question comes from Paul Valhus, and he's asking, is Wyze the best low-cost security and home automation system?
Go, John.
Well, I was waiting for you to ask this question. A couple of weeks back on Twit, Leo talked about they had a what do they call it when they break into the camera system? They had a vulnerability and they hid it from their users for a long time, which bothered Leo a lot. So I suggest you go watch that episode, Paul. But they are great value for the money, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
There's a few companies out there. I started with a Nest thermostat, and it is the best box I've ever bought for a couple of $100. It controls my air conditioning system, and it talks to Google, so I can control it in lots of different ways. But they've also added cameras, door unlocks, and all those kind of home automation things. I just like the integration that they've done with it. They've done a good job at it, almost as good as what Apple would have done.
I'll go, Jeffrey.
Yeah, what really scares me about Wyze is their security vulnerabilities, and they've had a few in the last couple of years. I use Wyze cameras for all my out-facing cameras. They can look at my front door all they want, but when it comes to indoor cameras, I use a company called EasyViz, EasyViz, and they make a lot of great PTZ cameras and a lot of still cameras. Also, Amazon bought Blink. And Blink cameras are pretty cool because they work really well. And then I even think of something like a PetCube camera, because a lot of people, they're pretty decent security on those. And you can get regular cameras that work just like standard cameras, like the Wyze camera, and a lot less security because there's still the same security, but a lot of people don't attack it as much simply because they think that it's pointing towards the ground. They won't be able to see anything from that camera.
Go ahead, Rosco.
I like Foscam PTZ cameras. They're pretty inexpensive. I use the 8910s, but I think they're on a newer model now. And then I use Sighthound, SIGHT Hound. It allows you to do a lot of, I don't know if you call it artificial intelligence. It just analyzes the video, goes through, and I can show everything that went through a certain line at my front door. So if you were 5 feet from my front door, I ignore you. But if you got 4 feet from my front door, I can see, I get a little, and it keeps those that get triggered. So I like the fact that all that triggering goes on, and you get the first one for free.
Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Mark Giuliani in Washington, D.C., and he asks, has anyone used Zoom events? If so, what are your thoughts?
I have to admit, I kind of fiddled with it in the back. And so, but the issue with that, here's my opinion of Zoom events, fiddling with it and looking at it and looking at the PR and everything else. There are people who, when they decide they want to do an event, they go to a hotel, they hire PSAV, they get a mic that's on a podium, and they get some chairs, and they have a projector going to the wall. That's Zoom events. It's also hop-in, it's also like, it's this kind of pre-built. I don't have there's not a lot of bells and whistles, but you can kind of do stuff, and I gotta kind of manage it myself. I think that's a valid thing to do. You might have a couple, volunteers or a couple staff, and you do the same thing in different rooms where you have, kind of what was built, what the hotel provides, with a hotel screen, with a hotel, and at some point, I did a lot of those when I was getting started. Once I started working with larger companies, there's a team that comes in and wraps the room and makes it look pretty, and puts a staff in and has playback and has stuff, and eventually a bunch of people in the back, that are running it. And that's more of what Avio and other people do. That's kind of the big game, is when people are building bespoke solutions for corporations. And so I think that if you're looking for I'm going to put a podium with a PSAV screen and have one operator in the room helping in the back, that you pay for extra. I think the Zoom events is that the equivalent to that to me. I don't think it'll ever be much more than that. And I don't think any of these are, because when we build these things from scratch, we build them exactly to look and feel like what the client wants, and the way it runs and how it works and everything else is something that we do a lot of. I really do mean that there is a place for it. And I think that it's very valuable that Zoom is building Zoom events so that you can do more than a webinar. But it's not really building a true event, like the way I think of them anyway. But I think that I think Zoom has to do it. I think that there's other people that are doing those, and that's a big business for hotels. Like that's thousands and millions of events, thousands of events a day happen in a hotel that look exactly like that. And they're cost effective, and they're easy to set up, and they're managed. So there's definitely a strong place for Zoom events, but I think that there's also still a lot of room. I think there's people in our industry that were like, oh, well, why are we doing the thing that we do when that exists? And I was like, well, there's a whole nother business, for companies like Salesforce and Google and many companies in the Fortune 100 or 500 that are doing something that they want to design it, and they want it to be the way that they want to do it, and they want it to look pretty, and they want people to be inspired when they walk in. And I don't think that that's what you're going to get. So just manage your expectations of what it provides, at least now. Go ahead, Peter.
I'm just going to completely agree with you, because the only place I've seen it used are repetitive meetings for like Rotary Club and for the organization I work with, the board meetings for the Boy Scouts of America, where we know it's essentially replacing everyone getting in one room. And all we're doing is we pre-schedule it. We know we have everything running, and it works just fine for what we want to do, for our expectations, right?
Yeah.
For our no branding.
It's a huge opportunity for us as designers. So I think people feel threatened by things like Zoom events and hop in and everything else sometimes, because they feel like, oh, they're going to replace us with technology. It's not what happens. When clients of mine ask me for, how do I do this little stream that I want to do? I just tell them, like, I'm not trying to hide anything from them, because I know that they'll do that, they'll get successful, and then they'll want to go bigger. And that's the business I want. Like, is when they go, oh, I want to do something bigger than this. That's the business I want to be in. I don't want to be in the, we want to put a camera on the back of the room and shoot it. That's just not that. So I'm happy to tell them how to do that. And I know that because what we do is more complicated. Next question.
Okay. Our next question is from James Foslin in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he asks, has anyone tried a telephoto lens attachment for cell phones on a webcam?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I've tried a couple of them. The biggest problem is that the clips that you use for those lenses that you put onto the phone don't really translate too well. You actually have to cut or break them off to try and get them on. And I've never had luck with them. The closest thing I've ever gotten to using a telephoto lens on a webcam is when we were playing with those Coast cameras, because they would always have the C lenses that you could exchange out.
Yeah, I think that the best lenses out there for this are moment lenses make the best ones for the iPhone, at least. I don't know much about the Android ones, but the iPhone ones, Moment makes these great ones, and that they actually this was recommended earlier, but they actually attach to these cases. They have Moment attachment to put them on the phone, so they're pretty slick. Next question.
Okay, Roy Myers from Bel Air, Maryland is back, and he asked yesterday he walked away from his computer for a minute, many hours after office hours, and when he came back, the Mukana browser window, the YouTube was playing the show. Why would that happen?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
If I had to take a guess, you probably have auto forward, whatever that thing is, in YouTube turned on. And what happens is at one point I will go back into the video and I will cut out the header, basically the countdown. And when that happens, that creates technically a new file. And so what would then happen is it would probably start not see the old version, see the new version, start from the beginning. So that's probably what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Okay, John Snyder in Reno, Nevada asks, what were the parameters and due dates for the coffee challenge? I don't think that was part of the discussion that was recorded last week.
Yeah, we have to set those parameters. That's probably something we should have discussed here. We started talking about it, and I said, when we're going to keep on talking about it, and then show examples. So my recommendation is that, and we can. Let's start with this, and if you want to submit them, we'll kick off the show with them, the second hour with those each week, whatever people put in. I don't want to try to force everybody to do them all at one time. You want to look at other people's and figure it all out. But what I would say is 60 seconds. You just have to fit it into 60 seconds. How you do it, whatever you do, don't make it longer than that. So, so 60 seconds. And what you want to think about is clearly, what we're going to measure it on is just clearly describing it. The first thing is that it's function over form. It's going to be 60 seconds long. The most important thing is that people leave knowing how to make coffee the way you make coffee. And then or tea. Tea is fine. And then, let's make it this way: hot beverage. It's a hot beverage. You can show any hot beverage, but basically it's 60 seconds long. When someone leaves, they have a sense of it at the end. They know how to make it, and they could reproduce it. And then the third is pretty, just pretty or fun to watch. So but make that third, not first. The most important thing is that someone in 60 seconds walks away knowing how to make the coffee the way you make it. And if it's precise, then it's precise, and if it's not, it's not. And then so let's keep it to that focus. And if you want to put those in, send them in. I'm going to try to do one next week, but I have to go to LA, so I don't know if it will happen. Probably another couple of weeks before I get one out. Next question.
Okay, Douglas Carmichael is asking, is the DJI Mini 2 the best drone to start with for a novice, or would the Mini SE be a better choice? What's appealing is the 249 gram weight, which exempts it from FAA registration.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
A good teacher in this area that teaches drone flying told me that whatever the first one you buy, make sure it's cheap and expendable. It will crash.
And I did it the other way. I bought expensive ones and wrecked them. So I had one that just disappeared. Like I was fortunate. I live in the middle of at the time I was living in the middle of nowhere. Where my family lives, there's just lots and lots of forest. But I got a data robotics, I think it was, and had this tendency to lose. So every once in a while it would fight you. Like you'd want to go one way and it would fight. I should have known that was like, eventually it was going to start ignoring me. So I tried to land it, and it just started going this way, and I started turning it, just kept on going. Like at a 45-degree angle, and I never saw it again. Like I was like, well, I hope it runs out of battery before it runs into a plane. But but it just lost it. And then I took a Phantom, and there was a thing with the Phantom when you push both the joysticks in, it would turn off the engines. I didn't know that you could do that while you were flying. So I was doing these aerobatics with it. Like I was getting just doing practice on the backyard and doing things really complicated moves. And somewhere I got to the point where they were both pointed in, and just in the middle of a move, it just stopped the engine and just dropped out of the sky and never flew again. And then I had the good idea of taking a theta and pulling it down, and I wanted to push it down far enough. So I set it up on blocks and another Phantom, and I set it up and I attached it so that it would hang down. I think I had it hanging like 1.5 feet below, because I was further away with a lens, with a 360 lens. The further you are away from whatever's holding onto it, it gets really small fast, and it's easier to get rid of it later. Anyway, so I had it right under it because I was afraid of the weight distribution, and I kept on going down. The problem is that when you start extending something out, it increases its leverage. So it becomes this thing that the computer inside the drone can't manage, because it's now got a weight like a pendulum that's swinging. So so I swung up, and then it just went into this, and it was really cool to watch. Then it hit a fence. That was the end of that one. So there's something that I only say that because what Mitchell said was absolutely certain. Is you should number one is cheap, and number two is know a good open place that you can learn how to play. No trees. I stuck another one in a tree. I took a Mavic, stuck it in a tree, but I did pay my older son to climb the tree. He's much thinner, much smaller than I am, and he's taller than I am, but more climby. he climbed up and got it for me, but it was anyway. So then I had two Mavics for a while until I crashed that one too. Anyway, go ahead, Jeffrey.
So as you were talking, I was looking at the two the specs of the two different drones, and they're very comparable. One's $450, the other one's $300. So if this is like a first drone for you, the SE, and you're not exactly sure if you're going to get into drone flying, maybe the SE is going to be the better one. But you'll see a little bit better everything with the other one, not the SE, but the Mini. And of course, I think you also get a couple extra batteries with it.
Next question.
Okay, John Snyder from Reno, Nevada is back.
We lost you.
No, that question moved on. Paul Valhus is here, and he's following up on Peter Moore's question. But what do you think of this DIY drum machine called Beatbox at Rhythmo.io?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. We didn't have. I don't know. It's called Beatbox Drum Tuner.
It looked like a little cardboard box with a bunch of gaming buttons.
Yeah, I saw this 2.5 years ago at NAMM. It was a college kid. He just developed this idea, and he put it together. So I got to play with it a little bit. A lot of stem, high end buttons, and it worked pretty well. So I'm really glad that he jumped through on that. But yeah, it's a great little device.
And I'm gonna do a little surgery here. Just wait 1 second here. So this is done. Okay, there we go.
Apologies on that little.
Yep.
Okay, John Snyder is here now with other than office hours, what are your go-to sources for industry trends, and what are the best sources for learning about emerging technologies?
I'll go with John.
Watch several shows at Twit Network, Mac Break Weekly, Security Now, the regular Twitch show. AppleInsider.com, MacRumors.com, and then Reddit. Those are my sources.
Hey, go ahead, Rosco.
I like SMPTE.org. Has some good technical talks about trends coming out. I love Mark Shubin. If you've never heard, he does a great job explaining the history of television and where we're going. I'm missing something right now. Right before NAB, there used to be a panel that would get together at Alpha Dogs, and they would just do a pre-NAB. They would do things like, is 3D technology going to go anywhere? And you'd get it is. And then you get three guys saying, nah, it's dead. And then sure enough, next year you find out 3D didn't go anywhere. So, there's some good resources. The HPA Tech Retreat, things that are coming up there is always a Hollywood Post Alliance, it's now called, is a good resource. So there's just things like NAB and papers and people in the industry I follow.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I follow a number of the working groups at the IEEE, which are, of course, working on the next generation of a number of technical standards for electrical equipment. I mean, that is part of their role in life. And so that's my, other than the Twit network, which, John mentioned, I also listen to a number of things on Relay FM that are of the same ilk, just to get different viewpoints. But IEEE is my primary source for hardcore technical information.
You go, Taylor.
Pretty much echoing everybody else. The only thing I will add is, since I'm a radio guy, I watch This Week in Radio Tech over on the GFQ network, the guys from Queen's Network. They have a lot of radio technologies there.
You go ahead, David.
I still have a subscription to Wired magazine. I've had it since issue 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it for a long time. I think it was funny when the iPad came out. I used to read a lot of magazines. Usually what happened was I was flying a lot, and I would buy a magazine that I was going to read, and I'd read it on the takeoff and landing, and by the end, and then I just leave it. Like I never I didn't want to carry it around, so it was always, I'd leave it for the next person. There it is.
Yeah, I've purged the physical copies over the years, but I still get it. Yeah, it's entertaining.
I found that when I went to the iPad, I never was comfortable reading whole articles on it. Like they get all this creative stuff of making it look cool, and I can't. I couldn't process it. Like and so I stopped. Like I try to use the Apple. I have the Apple Plus whatever, and I open the little magazines, and they make me really uncomfortable. And so I just stopped reading magazines. Like it was, and it, because I didn't want to go back to the physical one, but they weren't. And what's interesting is I find that just being served up, me on Flipboard is enough. So I. And I mean to do that. So I started testing it, and we should set this up for the company, not for the company. We should set this up for office hours, where we have a Flipboard that we can populate. I started doing it like, I think that's something cool. Cause when we're talking, you'll see me look over sometimes. What happens is someone mentions something here, and I literally put it into Chrome. I just grab it and drag it into my favorites or whatever. That bar just is this giant growing thing. And then when I'm in a meeting that I don't have to talk, I sit there and sort. So I'm in a long meeting, something that people put me in an hour meeting where I'm just sitting there, and I just sit there and sort into folders so that I have them all. But it's, so I have this whole group in Chrome that has all these sorted, like anything we've talked about here. And I started playing with putting it in Flipboard. I just couldn't, there's something wrong with it. But what happens is you can put a little extension on Flipboard in Chrome, and then you just put the URL in and hit Flipboard, and it just puts it in the Flipboard list. So what I was thinking is that, we might do that where we put up a office hours Flipboard, and when we're talking about things here, we can just throw links into it. And if you have Flipboard on your phone or on your iPad or on your web page, whatever, it'll just constantly be updating, especially in the mornings. But we could decide in after hours, let's put that on Flipboard. And
does Flipboard offer like a subscription feature like that? Because that would be kind of slick if it did.
It does. Well, you can basically subscribe to somebody's Flipboard. You don't pay for it. You just say, I want to follow that group or that person. And so sometimes sometimes Flipboard is looking at magazines or news articles, but there are people that you could follow, like, and so so you can just follow people or organizations that put up a feed. So it's like an RSS feed of the things that we think are cool or the things that we're talking about. So it's similar to the links that Sky puts together, but it would be just in a format that sits in a phone. So I think it might be useful. I've been playing with it, and I just realized I probably should have published it. So anyway, and maybe even take a lot of old links and throw them in and keep track of them. Probably need a team for this, but anyway, it would be nice because it's a great kind of casual thing that you can do. Flipboard is great because it's when you start following. What I do is I start following things, and then it starts giving to you. And so then I have there's a photography section and a media section and a radio section and everything else. And so when I'm waiting in line, mostly I just open up Flipboard and I just kind of read articles. But I find that simple format works way better for me than the complicated formats. I just want the protein. Like, I don't need you to design it for me. I want more images, though. That's the one problem, is a lot of articles don't have any images. Go ahead, Sky.
I read Broadcast and Cable magazine. It's just statistics and data of where the money is being spent. And as far as trends, I'm very interested in what commercials are being, the millions of dollars on what networks, what platforms, and also what content that is also, getting the eyeballs, because that's what all the content is there for, is to sell the advertising. I mean, at a certain level, at a certain part of our industry, that they're there to make money. That's their job. And so consequently, to see where the money is being spent and who and on what eyeballs, that's the one hard copy paper. Plus it's free. It shows up at my mailbox and ends up big stacks underneath my bed.
I don't think I'll get in trouble for saying this, but a friend of mine threw me on the mailing list for William Morris.
Yes.
WME.
Wow.
This was the bid mailing list. I was on it for a long time, and then I think someone realized that I was on it and took me off. This was years ago.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like, it was because you get about 2 or 3 a day, and it's from somebody at WME to all their clients.
Explain who William Morris is.
It's a huge entertainment agency. It represents, lots of producers and creators and everything else. And so they send out a list every 2 or 3 days, or two or three a day. Epix is looking for this kind of show. Budget is $365,000 an episode. Like, they want a package of 8. This is like this company's doing this show, $750,000. It changed the way I bid stuff, because I realized I was really underbidding a lot of things, because I was like, that is a horrible looking show for that price, and so you just see this flow, and it was amazing how you just got this enormous knowledge of how the industry works by just the descriptions.
And that producer is living in a very nice third home somewhere in the Bahamas.
Well, I think the person who put me on the list is probably somewhere in Alaska. I just want to see if any of them are. I was going to read you one so that you see if because it's not like I'm doing it. I can't find them now. Anyway, it was life changing. So a lot of these things can be. Oh, here, hold on. I'll read you one.
Thank you.
Sundance TV. Because I didn't officially do anything here, so I didn't sign anything. So Sundance TV, it says what hours are being programmed. They're being opportunistic in how they approach their new submissions moving forward. So they are not programming for specific hours. Budget $500K per hour. Current shows, and it lists the current shows. I won't get some of this up. It'll probably get me in trouble. But but that was a long time ago. I mean, this is from. But I would get these little what they're not looking for, and I won't get it. Like feel good TV. They're not looking for active investigation shows. They're not looking for feature docs. They're not looking for traditional reality. So that it tells you like what they are looking for, what they're not looking for.
And again, that's the attractant.
When it comes to trends, it was super useful. Like you just see what Hollywood wants and doesn't want. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and again, but that's the and that's why I like the broadcast and cable, is because that's the attractant for the eyeballs, and the advertisers are going to put their $100,000 ad in front of the eyeballs that are going to most possibly buy their Geico thing. I mean, I think HGTV is owned by Geico. It must be.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
By the way, Geico is one of the biggest advertisers in the world. But for me, I like it print. I'm a print kind of guy. When I'm sitting down long enough, I start reading things. I don't care what it's about. If it's technical, I'm going to read it. I don't care. There's something I can learn in all of these things. I just go through it. And if I see a headline or a piece of equipment that catches my attention, then I read the story.
Yeah, the one that I read, the site that I go to the most is TechMeme. So that's the one that I probably want. General technology trends, but TechMeme is the one that I probably spend the most time on. And then the one that I read for general trends, since I was like 12 years old, is Foreign Affairs. It's good if you're into something a little bit more wonky. There's a lot of different viewpoints, and again, probably give you a good sense of me, knowing that I've been reading it since I was 12. So anyway, next question.
Right. Our next question comes from Fred Eric Eckert of Bad Ehrenalb, Germany. He needs to set up a newsletter for a customer to promote a digital event. Any newsletter platform to prefer?
Go, Jeffrey.
So Adobe Cloud is a great one to do it. And then, of course, all the new kids are using that thing called Canva, which works really well as creating newsletters.
Go ahead, Sky.
Yes, I was going to recommend Canva because it's global, it's cross-platform. You can also squeeze it down into the different shapes and sizes of delivery. It's no longer just a single PDF that you put into a mail. It's like, how do people consume their media?
I go, David.
Is MailChimp a contender in that platform? Because that's what our House of Worship uses for weekly thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think MailChimp, I was going to say MailChimp as far as sending it out, and you can design inside of MailChimp. You know, it's got lots of templates and so on and so forth. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Constant Contact. They've got a lot of stuff you can design around them. It works great for me.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, MailChimp. I use MailChimp for my newsletters, so that works really well. But the other thing is what you can also do if you want for distribution, you can also set up a website. Use the RSS enclosure because it does accept PDFs, and then send them as PDFs on your webpage. That way you can send them out through your own channels if you're not charging anybody for these newsletters.
If you're doing HTML, then I think that I like MailChimp a lot. If you're actually going to build a PDF, also look at Pages. Apple, if you're on the Apple platform, Pages builds beautiful looking images. And here's the deal: it does kerning better. So the spacing is better on Pages on all the Apple products than everybody else's. And it's a weird little thing, but I can see it. You know, like so I would say I can't see it, I can feel it. Like it just feels like when you put out a brochure or a newsletter or anything else out of Apple Pages, it looks better. It just looks more refined, especially if you use one of their tablets. I do bids all the time, and I use Pages. I use Keynote when I'm doing slides, but I use Pages when I want to do pros. So anything I want to do, like lots of things I'm gonna put images in, I go and just look for one of the Pages templates and use it, because Apple has impeccable taste when it comes to that, and it just replaces. There's like I use this I think it's like a biology book template, and I use that all the time for bids. Like it's just, just throw things in there, and it just looks gorgeous, and it looks like you spent way more money on sending it out. So definitely look at that as well. The only other thing you have to think about is whether you need automation. So I used to work on a magazine, and a lot of what we were doing is automation. So we were like half of the magazine was generated automatically. It was like, classifieds and other things like that. In that case, I'm not saying you should use this, but in that case, we used Quark Express with AppleScript. So basically we had FileMaker with all the stuff that we needed, and we just hit go, and it would just push everything from FileMaker into Quark and just populate, 8 pages of classifieds automatically. And so you just want to think about looking at automate. I'm not saying using Quark. I don't even know Quark still exists. It's so the and PageMaker would do the same, or not PageMaker, but InDesign is like when you start getting into heavy lifting. InDesign is another one that you're going to start. And there is a publication. I don't remember what it's called, but Adobe makes a publication app that is a step. It's like a step up from PageMaker or InDesign. Truly, like you are building a publication, and this is what's there. I'm not saying you should use that for your little newsletter. Maybe it's not a little newsletter, but I mean, I'm not saying you should do it for. When people say newsletter, I usually think of. I used to make a lot of newsletters, like for Prime Sports Network and lots of other folks, and so I'm very familiar with it, but I don't know what the current tools are. But think about automation, because if you're going to be doing lots of stuff that's in it already, you have to think about how are you going to get that data into it that doesn't include typing. Next question.
Okay, Fred Eric Eckert in Bad Ehrenberg is back with, besides office hours, which regular Q&A show, weekly or monthly, can you recommend to show a client to convince them to produce a regular show?
Go ahead, Rosco.
I'm going to channel Chris Fenwick. We both watch Matt's Off-Road Recovery. And what this is, it's a relational show, but they are doing a task every week, and they take you along. And they have bonded other shows with them. So there's other Fab Rats, and there's 3 other shows that are directly that they will refer to. It's kind of like watching an old like Mayberry show where, suddenly they're over with Gomer, and Gomer's over here. So you can watch Gomer for a while. So this is really good marketing. It's building a relationship with clients. So I would look at it and analyze it.
Next question.
Okay, our next question comes from Ryan Rademan in Chicago, Illinois. If Elon buys Twitter, what do you hope he changes about the product?
No, nothing. Like it's as good as it's going to get, in my opinion. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'd rather leave it as best as possible, minus the fact of being able to edit a tweet or something like that.
It'll be a
from time to
disaster.
time. That would be nice. It would be a disaster in some cases, but yeah, if you had the right the way, if it's done the right way, then I think that it would work fairly well. And then of course the other thing is everything is there and gone. So if there was a way to keep it there for a little bit longer, I'd love to see that happen. But on the audio video side, bringing in more ability to turn it into sort of something like a Discord or Slack, not putting it like a Facebook, because we don't need another Facebook. That would be what I'd be looking for.
Good, Rosco.
Cut back the word count. Keep it simple.
You said cut back the word count?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I like it the way it is. I like
it longer. Yeah.
I use up. You'll notice that my tweets are almost always like 0, or maybe I left like three letters.
Yeah.
I find it to be it's a bit of a haiku to build the idea that you want into that box. And now what's funny is when it was 140 characters, I used to think in 140 characters. Like I just thought of, I can say this tweet. I did find I found that at the 200 and whatever it is now, that I could have a more complete thought, that I could put out there. And I got really good at putting it into there. But I think if you couldn't take it back now, because I would literally stop using the platform.
Yeah. Well, I like just scan. So I just like something I can just bite onto and then let a conversation become the development. But that's just me.
I think what you'd end up with is more people doing the thing, which kind of annoys me, is the whole, like, I'm going to give you eight tweets that are connected to each other. It makes me a little crazy, and I will say, if there was something that I would change, is I would rebuild their entire streaming stack, because it's just a disaster. Like, it's just their entire thought process around streaming is dumb. You can watch it in the feed, or you can watch it full screen, but you can't have a larger window or a breakout window. The encoding quality is the worst. Like, I don't think that there's any encoding for live that is worse than Twitter's. So I think that and then, there's all this, it's a bad platform for that. And we have clients that say, I want to stream to Twitter. And you're like, really? Because you're going to fragment your audience for something that looks horrible, that they'll only watch for 20 seconds because it looks horrible. And so they really messed that up. But I think that, like, editing, the problem with editing is people will put something up, get it retweeted, and then change it. And that will just destroy the platform. Like, that's why they don't put it in. Like, I complained about it a lot because I'm prone to bad tweets. And I was talking to somebody that would know an awful lot about Twitter, and he just said, well, what'll happen is people will post stuff, and then people will retweet it, and then they'll change it. And he said, one word, one letter can change the whole meaning. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, oh yeah. so I've stopped worrying about it. That's why we don't tweet, is because of what I was educated in. Go ahead, Sky. Can't hear you, Sky.
Thoughts on this thing that's evolving in the moment. And, I'm always interested in the why of something. And one of their quotes in here is, he's trying to frame the whole takeover bid as a sort of crusade to protect free speech. So again, if that's the cause, then what tools would that very smart person do?
Making it private removes a lot of the controls that the government has. So that's the big thing, is if he buys it and makes it private, he can do a lot more. A lot of the antitrust stuff is all about publicly traded companies. So if they're not publicly traded, the whole thing becomes, there's a lot of, he takes the government's leverage, a lot of the government's leverage, not all of it, but a lot of the government's leverage away. They have a lot of leverage over publicly traded companies and not over privately traded, privately owned companies. So that's I can't hear you.
Hello?
Now you can.
Okay. That's where the FCC was, brought in to help, guide and guard people's thought
but
patterns.
I don't think that these platforms don't sit under the FCC.
There's the point. Yeah.
The reality is that all these platforms are old. They have weak points, and they were a great idea 15 years ago, but there's a lot of both technical and social debt in them, and so it doesn't mean that something else couldn't be done. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand, and it's for John Preto, DSO, the decentralized blockchain for social media. And he includes the URL, and he's asking thoughts.
Go ahead, John.
I looked this up yesterday when you posted this, Peter, and please don't buy any crypto based on what I say. It's an interesting concept where you're creating a social network, and all of the content is posted onto the blockchain, so it's immutable. I think that's got some value to it. As far as free speech goes, I mean, what a way to do that. But there's just too many, tokens out there and too many projects going on to keep track of. I don't pay attention like I used to like 4 or 5 years ago anymore. So I think it's an interesting concept. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Liberty White in Atlanta, Georgia. My cousin is thinking about getting the latest Rode headphones, the NTH 100s. Thoughts? And she's a podcaster.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I would use the standard that everybody goes by, the venerable Sony 7506s. And if you want to get really clever, get the ones that Sky's going to hold up, and you can put colored ear pads on there. Go ahead, Sky, show them. See how cool you can be.
Yeah, I have always used, my background is mostly been AKGs. So, the one that I probably use the most are the 240s, are the ones that I have used for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. So those I'm comfortable with those. They do have a little bit of leak to them. So the Rodes could be, you want to think about if you're using it podcasting, and depending on the mic, you want to make sure that it's really going to go to your head, and it's not going to breathe at all, because otherwise you'll hear this little dit inside of it. And so that's the only thing. Go ahead, Taylor.
Are these the AKGs you're talking about?
Yeah, they are. So exactly. Yeah, that's those. Turn your head. Let me just make sure this. Yep, that's it. That's what I have. I have lots of those. I think we had probably at some point within PickScore like 20 or 30 of them that float around. They last, and they don't hurt too bad when you destroy them over time by packing them into kits.
Right. I got them. Leo recommended them on his show one day, and I picked them up, and I've liked them ever since.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, if you want to be an old-time radio guy, get yourself a pair of Koss Pro 4 AA's, which I believe they still make, and you haven't lived until the ear cups have been pierced and you've got vegetable oil pouring down your shirt.
Next question.
Our next question is from James Babbitt in San Diego. It's a question that he asked on Saturday, April 16th. Or wait, that's today. Sorry. Could cinematography be added as a second-hour topic or maybe an after-hours topic with the panelists including Sky, Rosco, Courtney, etc.?
We had Darren Okada on. You should check that one out. It was a pretty good conversation. He used to be president of ASC, so he was on Office Hours. We should find out. I think he was filming. We could probably bring him back. It'd be kind of fun to have him back. He was really good. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, early days, we had who's the gentleman over in that was on that worked on a film, big films. I'm a passionate fan of this, but I am not the expert. I'm one trying to learn as well. But Shane Hurlbut would be somebody I would vote into that position.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Just wondering, what are the implications of showing film without sound for analyzing?
I mean, it's easier to do. It's easier. Yeah. And it was Chris Summers, by the way, was the person you were talking about. And Chris was amazing. And Chris, if you're listening, we can't wait for you to finish your film. We're glad that you're busy, but when you're done, come back and visit us. We really miss your Wednesday sessions. Chris was actually kind of created the idea of the Wednesday sessions in a lot of ways. So anyway, yeah, so I think that there's legally we can do it. Technically, YouTube will smack us to do it. If we stop and start and analyze and look at things and draw on it, that's all fair use. But we'll just be, our streams will be constantly be taken down and at risk of strikes and anything if it visually goes up. So that's the problem. Now we can do picture in picture. So if we make it smaller, a lot of times it gets past the hash. But that's the issue. And I think that there's some ways that we might be able to do that where, but legally, I think we're in the right, because it's a fair use to analyze it and use it for educational purposes and so on and so forth. We're definitely not commercializing it, but I think that we'd risk strikes and all kinds of other stuff. Go ahead, Taylor.
The one thing I wanted to point out, if you're searching through Office Hours episodes, especially in the early days, you might find some over on Alex Lindsay's YouTube channel, not necessarily the Office Hours channel. Yeah. So just a side note when you're going to search for previous episodes.
Next question.
Okay. Our next question comes from Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland. What is the average number of computers and screens of an Office Hours panelist?
We'll just start doing a sample here. Peter.
Ignoring my work laptop, I have 6 screens in here.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Can't hear you, John.
12 screens, probably 5 computers in this room right now.
Go ahead, Taylor. Oh, I jumped. Mitchell. Sorry, Mitchell.
Yeah, I've got 4.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
132-inch with many windows, 1 computer.
Go ahead, Taylor.
4 screens, 3 computers.
David.
If I count the Raspberry Pis, I've got 8 computers and 5 screens.
And I have 5 computers and 6 screens on here. Next question.
Our next question is from John Snyder in Reno, Nevada. My main camera is an older Lumix G7. I repositioned it by about 6 inches last week, and now it has decided my background is significantly more interesting than I am. I'm constantly fighting its autofocus. Any suggestions?
Yeah, you just have to be in the middle. I think what it considers the middle to grab onto it. I don't know if it does face tracking on it at all. Go ahead, Sky.
I think you can also make that target area smaller in at least some of the Lumixes. So you don't have to, the big broad, fishnet that you're using. You can make it smaller maybe?
Mitchell?
Yeah, the same thing with the Sony. This is a ZV-E10, and I'm using an FX3. And you can set the sensitivity to it for tracking to the eyes, whether it's a person, a pet, whatever. But I can't speak to the Lumix because I don't have one.
Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Brandon Buttram in Indianapolis. I have 2 offices and 2 Stream Decks. I would like to try out Companion. Can one Companion instance work in both places? If so, what might be the best way to do that? Pis are expensive. Linux VM maybe. Machines are all on the same virtual network.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. If you're talking about taking a laptop and moving it to the office and plugging in a different Stream Deck into that, it's very possible. It will recognize it as a different Stream Deck. You just basically import Companion. You basically import the and reset the instances. I actually have my Stream Deck set into 2 different networks. So what I will do is if I go over to the remote system, I have Companion set up, and I'll have all the IP addresses set up for that network, and then I'll do the same thing. So you can basically export, and then go to the other office, import, and then change any IP addresses for devices that you need. But you definitely need to keep things as similar as possible for it to work correctly. And of course, if you're doing a in between both offices, I can't think of the term that creates a tunnel there. You could
VPN.
If you do that, then you should be able to connect up to that other IP address without a problem.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, the other thing I'd consider would be look into Docker, which is like a portable Linux VM. You can put it on a thumb drive, bring it wherever you need, and fire it up when needed. I think the tricky part is going to be getting the USB connection from the Stream Decks to those virtual instances. But I'd like to see how this pans out.
Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Douglas Carmichael. I've heard of people who have shipped RVs to foreign countries, Europe and Africa, for long trips. Wouldn't there be issues with registration, road regulation when driving a foreign vehicle in another country?
Go ahead, Sky. Can't hear you.
The different questions. The experience I have with this is the U.S. military, and they would bring in vehicles for their soldiers, and consequently sometimes
slightly different.
Well, it can be, but I've had big giant SUVs and different trucks and trailers that the U.S. military brought over for their soldiers.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I've had the inverse. A friend of mine imported an old Mini, 1980 Mini Classic from Holland that I bought off of him. And in order for me to register it, it had to go through auction because there was no legal paperwork or anything in order to create it. And then it was limited driving, etc. Technically, I drove it around on those Dutch plates for a couple of months while waiting for all the legal paperwork. But it's doable. It's a lot of red tape, though.
Good, Peter.
Well, having imported a vehicle just into Canada, I mean, there are a series of legal hoops you have to go through, none the least of which is whatever the equivalent of the NTSB up there has a different set of car regulations than or vehicle regulations than the US does. And I would venture to guess so does every other country.
The funny thing is you also have to pay attention to what the regulations are, what the tariffs are coming from, if you move in, and they're different when you might be able to carnet your car. Like you could literally carnet a car, which is that, you give the serial number, you say it arrived, and I'm going to take it back out again when I'm done. And so if it's carnet country, it could be a little bit simpler. The funny thing is that there's a much different tariff for bringing in cargo vehicles than there are bringing in passenger vehicles. And so the car companies in Germany or in Europe have seats that they put into the car. And when they get here, they take the seats out and ship them back and put them in the next car. Like that's how they got around it. It comes in as a passenger van, and then it ends up being sold as it's a retrofit of pulling them, but they return the seats back. So I got into a conversation with someone at a store. We were buying some vans, and I was wondering why the seats were still there. And when they were showing to me, this one just got in. We haven't taken the seats out. And I was like, why did you send the seats over? It was tariffs. Next question.
Okay, Tlaloc Miguel Lopez Waterman in Salisbury, Maryland asks, when you have a lens in a group of cameras that stops down when zoomed in, should we stop down the other cameras to match the zoom state? Or should we change the iris dynamically on that camera or other methods?
Go ahead, Rosco.
Yeah, what he's talking about is the Vario lenses, and I run into this because I shoot on micro four thirds, and I have a lens that runs f4 to f5.6 or somewhere in there, and so it's not a very fast lens. So if you're indoors shooting with that lens on those micro four thirds cameras, you really have to pour a lot of light in. So you got to adjust that iris if you can. There might be a point where you cannot open that iris enough to get it back up, but you always want to keep your cameras at the highest video level or the highest signal to noise ratio as possible. So I would always raise the iris first, but then obviously if you have enough light, you'll be in a much better situation.
Yeah, and we didn't do this in a concert recently, so that's probably where this question came from. What you should do is zoom in all the way and then set your iris and then leave it that way. Don't open it back up again. And what we did is it was wide, and I was the one actually doing that. And I forgot that lens was that way until we were doing it. So, but you have to you want to go in, set it, and then you'll set your iris to as wide open as it'll go, which will be lower. But when you zoom back out, as long as you set it to the least sensitive, you don't do it to all the cameras, you just do it to the camera that's there, then gain that camera back up to where it can get the exposure that matches the other one. Anyway, next question.
Okay, Douglas Carmichael, he noticed a rented RV used for OH space. Wouldn't most rental companies not be happy with the sand and debris on a rented vehicle? I know Hertz and companies like it will charge you a cleaning fee.
Go ahead, John.
So the road down to the dry lake bed is paved, and then once you get on the dry lake bed, it's like concrete. But the dust, you have to clean all that up, otherwise you don't get your deposit back. So we spent 2 days cleaning. It was pretty clean when we sent it back. So I didn't have it. I got my deposit back.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
One of those RVs was the one I crashed in. And I know when we bugged out, it got pretty well hammered. The vehicle I was supposed to rent was going to be a standard Jeep, but they didn't have one. So they gave me like a brand new Ford Edge. I rolled it down onto the lake bed. And when I returned it, it was filthy. And I just gave them the keys and they were like, have a good day. So
yeah, exactly. Next question.
Okay. Our next question again is from Douglas Carmichael. And I've been learning concepts like augmented and suspended chords using melodics, and he gives us a link, but it's a lot to digest. Would Suggester, with another link, be a good way to practice chords and progressions?
Jeffrey.
For practice, yeah, but the better thing to do is just to work on your music theory, because this is just going to give you a bunch of chords to play out and say, here's a chord structure, use that. And then if you're trying to build up a mode or a mood or anything like that, it might go in a direction that you're not expecting to. My favorite song when it comes to any of the suspended stuff is Dream On by Aerosmith, because it's just got that. It's staying on the F chord during that whole time that it goes through 5 chord progressions. And that tells a story. It gives you a direction for that story. So something like this it'll be a great learning tool, but it will not give you probably a direction of where you want to go.
Yeah, I'm going to keep coming back to the best thing to do is play music too. Like play, it's hard to just learn. It's hard to learn just the thing you want to do. Like for instance, I find that with games, a lot of times I try to race through the games and go to higher levels, even if it's harder. And I don't, because it stretches my mind to understand how the game works, and then I can go back and fill the levels in, to get everything in, because you learn more that way to get way out ahead and then come back to it. And so I think that actually doing playing an actual song that maybe has that, then coming back to those things, it's really good to have all that knowledge. But again, you are at the beginning of, I don't know, Jeffrey can either agree or disagree, but to really get good at this, you're at the beginning of a 10-year process. Like it's not, this is unfortunately, fortunately people like Jeffrey started when they were 10, or younger or whatever.
It's like if you're writing your first book and you're using another book to match what you're writing, it's going to be the other person's voice that you're talking through.
Or it's like writing a book in another language that you're just learning. Like you're learning the language and now you're trying to write a novel in it. And sometimes you just need to read a bunch of the books and write small pieces and do things. But you want to use it actively in the way it was designed to be used, or because that'll inform your study. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think that also falls back to that vocabulary, kind of what we were talking about earlier about cinematography. There's that vocabulary of setting up shots and doing things. And once you have that kind of thing, the rest of it all falls into place.
And we have to remember, I've been thinking about this more and more over the last 6 months, and we're about to go into the education hour and probably talk about it some more, but I've really been thinking about how we learn naturally. And how we learn naturally is we didn't read anything about it. Like we didn't read how to speak English, but we learned it. We learned it, and we learned it, and we learned it by watching other people that were better at it than us and slowly triangulating what they were doing without a lot of explanation. Like there wasn't like and then we got to a point where we were asking why and how and everything else all the time, and people would answer those questions and we assimilated that information. But almost all of it was contextual. Like it was contextual to what we were doing. We were learning about it because we were doing it. And I think that right now there's a temptation to get very theoretical about things. And okay, I'm going to read a bunch of things about it, but that doesn't mean anything until you do it, And like, for instance, I think that like one thing that we're working on with the stage is that we're going to work very hard on like having someone like Marcia come in and call shows and then let people hear call shows. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, oh my goodness, like if you're in the Bay Area listening, like being the person on the board while Marcia is cutting the show is gold. Like it's just gold, because you're sitting there, it's all you can think about the whole time is just like, how do I keep up with what she's doing? And I think that we're going to try to keep doing more of that, and potentially having someone cut the show in one place and someone call the show and then let you guys do it. And then you'll see this is the big thing, is then have people here cut a show without Marcia, and then, but maybe even have Marcia watch it and give you feedback on like, you could have done this or you could have done that. But the point is that, and then when you watch her do it again, you'll understand it. Like if you did it a couple times and then you watch her do it, your understanding of what she's doing is entirely different. And there's no reading that's ever going to get you there. You just have to struggle. And without the struggle, it's really hard to remember those things, and you have to do it. Go ahead, Sky.
The word survival comes to mind also, because that was Thursday when you brought in that amazing artist. And I asked the question, why did you choose photography? She said, because I had no choice. And That was the only thing she had. So I'm very curious in that conversation. So That's why I'm looking forward to the education part.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay. Douglas Carmichael is back, and he's asking, when the Rwandan government had a stay and work at home order, my first thought was the struggle you'd have finding low latency landline connectivity in a second or third tier country. Would it be that bad?
No, Rwanda is probably the best connected country in Africa. There's fiber that goes through a lot of it. Still not the highest speed because everyone used it, because the Rwandan government made it really cheap. And so they wanted to make sure that everyone could afford it. So they made it very inexpensive. That means everybody uses it. And now they don't have enough capacity. So there's a whole so they're working on that. But a lot of people have connectivity there. Next question.
Okay. Our next question is from Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway. And I apologize for mispronouncing your name yesterday. He has a few Ursa Broadcast G2s in his studio on BIDI SDI. Is that bidirectional? We need more angles. Will Pocket Cinema 6K Pro just be a hassle due to HDMI only? Should I just add more broadcast because of the SDI and REF? Can pocket cinemas be REF synced in a live studio?
I go with Rosco.
Yeah, they can't be reference sync that I know of. There is a signal going down the HDMI back to the camera, but it's just mostly control signals. There's nothing, no sync signals going backwards on the SDI. I'm sorry, on the HDMI. So I don't think there's any going to be to sync them. Otherwise, if you use a bidirectional controller with an SDI, switcher, or conversely, if you use an ATEM with an SDI camera, you can use these bidirectionals and get the commands to be passed from the SDI to the HDMI.
Yeah, you need
so
the
work.
I think what he's talking about is the bidirectional converter. So it's it has two SDIs and an HDMI, two HDMIs,
Right.
so you can pass that information back and forth there. So it does work, as Rosco said. There's no way to reference them. They'll be a little different. The color science will actually be pretty close. I mean, we've mixed and matched Ursas and those pretty well. It's just that there's a lot of controls that you won't have that you're used to with an Ursa. Lots of buttons on the outside, lots of things there that you don't have. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I use a Sony RX107 camera in my video setup. They're on manual focus. When I optically zoom the cameras, they need to be refocused. Shouldn't they maintain focus as they're zoomed? Am I missing a setting?
Go ahead, Rosco.
No, you're not missing a setting. I did a little research. I went to DP Review to look for what's called a parfocal lens. And that's where your ability to zoom in, grab focus, and then the focus is maintained. It takes a little bit more complicated lens than they're going to put on something consumer at this level to maintain parfocal. But I didn't see anything that said parfocal in the lens on this camera.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Can't they check back focus? Make sure the back focus is correct first before they try zooming in?
Not on a still camera. So
yeah, it's a really small little
regular camera.
So video lenses. We were dealing with this on the concert that we were doing because we were just doing a bunch of still lenses because we didn't have a lot of budget. And so a video lens has a back focus setting. And so what you typically do is you take a focus chart. It looks like just a little circle with triangles in it, and you put it out at a known distance. We usually use 10 feet. So you put that exactly 10 feet, and there's a little circle with a line. It looks like this, and this is where the sensor is, right, on the side of the camera. We measure it 10 feet exactly to that point. Then we set the lens at 10 feet on the actual zoom settings if you're using a film lens, and then we focus that in so that it looks perfectly sharp when it's set to 10 feet. Then we zoom in and zoom all the way out and make sure that it still looks like it's in focus. and we might have to make some adjustments there. And at that point and there's some automatic ways to do it, but that's the way. There's a cone or not a cone, but a thing you can put on the end of the lens and do the same thing. It's faster, takes less space, but I don't have the money for that. Next question.
Okay, Douglas Carmichael. Given the Dante supply chain issue, could you see another audio networking standard taking the leadership crown?
Mitchell.
No, because Dante is here to stay. It's beaten out like AVB, CobraNet, a bunch of other. Then there's some radio ones, but they're always going to be what they are. AES 67. No, Dante's here to stay.
It's under a lot of pressure, so it probably is here to stay. But it is under a lot of pressure. It's a mixture of it, the supply chain and the cost. So Ravenna is the kind of the open source version of that, or the less free version of it, and more people are trying to figure out how to use Ravenna. And this is always the problem when you charge a certain amount of money. It's a good business model, but you're creating a space underneath that for someone else to come in. And Ravenna is the one that is the heir apparent, I think. Maddie is the old one. That is just as frustrating as Dante, just more limited, in my opinion. A lot of people in broadcast like Maddie, and I hate it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Let's put it this way: there were a lot of people that were frustrated with Cisco and WebEx, and a couple of them broke off, and they started a little program called Zoom, and then they took over. So it can be done.
Next question.
Okay, Douglas Carmichael has one more for us. For a 6 to 8U rack that will not travel, what would be the most cost-effective enclosure?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Middle Atlantic. They got quite a few different sizes, shapes, and rack numbers.
I use a lot of SKBs as well. Next question.
Okay. And Ronnie Hofsoy in Tromsø, Norway is back with, in the old days, we could just follow a cable to know where it came from and where it ended up. How should we visualize all the Dante connections and routing? Is there a way to export the mapping, or do we need to just draw it on OmniGraffle or similar?
I draw it on OmniGraffle, to what I'm going to do, and then I program it. And then a lot of times when we're figuring stuff out, we just, the first step of it is you just sit there and you go into the routing software and you start routing stuff out, in and out. But eventually I usually try to draw it out. I used to have my audio is one, my power, Ethernet, video are all different layers inside of, usually inside of OmniGraffle. So there we go. Oh, we have one more.
One squeaked under the wire from Peter Moore in Auckland. Does Office Hours After Hours offer a gas intervention service?
I don't know what that is. So no, we don't. We don't offer it. All right. All right. We are now at the end of the hour. We did really well. It was great work. It felt like a very casual conversation, and we still covered 47 questions, so just 3 short of our average. So it's good. Thanks to the producers for such a great set of questions, and the panelists for answering all those questions so well. And now we're going to take a little break. We're going to say goodbye to YouTube. Bye YouTube. See you. So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Adieu. Adieu. Adieu to you and you and you. And I didn't do the notes there very well. I always like at the end when he goes, goodbye. Sorry. No one knows what I'm talking about, do they?
Oh, of course. Sound of music. Absolutely.
They're horrified at me beating up the Sound of Music.
Office Hours is alive with the Sound of Music.
Thank you, Julie Andrews.
How about the end of Rowan and Martin's Laugh In?
I didn't see that one.
That's what they run over the final credits. One hand clapping.
Not a doctor.
We should do that. That'll be one of them. All right. We're gonna have our educators come in here as they roll in. I'm gonna be back at 9:10 for the